Hello, and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who is well known for his service toting a shotgun as a sergeant in the Space Marines.
Tim Longo.
You knew I was going to go there.
I'm definitely...
You're the model.
I'm known for that.
You are known for that, yeah.
The Space Marine himself.
I'm the green-haired guy, but you're the Space Marine.
Okay, yeah. Good.
Corporal. You're really more of a corporal? What do I used to call you? Commander? Colonel.
Colonel.
Yes.
I'm
not going to repeat the other word, but yes.
Okay. We're a safe... Yeah, we're not a...
Yeah, for family podcast.
Yeah, no explicit...
We're going to talk about the Demons of Heck. As we discussed this week, 1993's Doom.
We can say hell, can't we?
I mean, sure. I'll have to mark us explicit, I guess.
Is it really explicit?
Probably.
Oh, okay. All right.
Demons of Heck. I've never
We're going to talk about 1993's Doom, and we can't say H-E double hockey sticks.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, the Demons of Heck have invaded Mars.
They have invaded.
Is where episode 1 starts. We're on Mars.
I guess we are, yeah. And then we go to Deimos and Phobos or whatever.
And, yeah,
You go to Deimos. You think it's Deimos, but you're actually in hell.
At the end.
In
the next one.
Right.
Yeah. It was unclear what exactly happened at the end.
You get into a teleporter and then you show up somebody and it's like, blam! And it's like, oh, well, you thought you were going to get away and go home, but instead...
We're jumping to the end.
You jumped to hell. Yeah.
But, yeah, anyway, we'll get there.
We'll get there. There's plenty of time to get there.
The last section that last level was cool.
Yeah, I was a little surprised.
Yeah, Doom. 1993,
yes.
First. We've played some games.
We have.
And this, which I always forget which ones we've played during certain years. And looking back, we have, at the very least, we have Day of the Tentacle.
Yes.
MYST. Still a very heavy adventure game year, as we talked about with both of those games in that series. Other notable ones, Link's Awakening. Syndicate, some other sort of like genres that are pretty popular at that time. Mortal Kombat 2 came out in the arcades, at least, as well. X-Wing came out. We didn't play X-Wing, but we played TIE Fighter.
Yep, as our sort of refinement of the formula.
Yeah, so that's kind of the space. Masters of Orion, a few others to mention, but those are the main ones. And I think the reason that I wanted to bring up the adventure game sort of, I don't know if it'd be peak, but, they're doing pretty well.
They're doing very well.
Seventh Guest came out
Seventh Guest, right. So you've got CD-ROMs. I mean, you're talking about MYST, right? So you've got this sort of like much more... So the media has changed, right? You're reading from CD-ROMs. And then along comes this little shareware game, which we'll talk about in and of itself, that's shipped on floppies.
Yeah.
And it all fits on your hard drive, which are also... not new, but also not old. Like my first hard drive is probably 88 or 9? 9, I think, my first hard drive.
Well, yeah.
I had a Mac.
I definitely had, yeah.
I took to college, but that might have been...
I had an AT&T 6300 that I played a lot of my PC games on before going to college, so that would have been high school, yeah, so... 90, 89.
Yeah, 80, right.
80.
But around that time, hard drives are becoming a new thing. And then you've got the CD-ROMs, which is like, okay, well, there's a slow media, so the games are slow.
Right.
They can't,
different kind of design for
that. Right, you have to design for something that's not going to load instantaneously, whereas this has to all fit in memory and can be fast.
Be super efficient.
Yeah.
And then just to some degree, like we talked so much, it's actually kind of nice that we played MYST not long ago, because we talked so much about MYST's presentation, and then you have such the same
this
year.
This is the polar opposite
of the sort of rendering presentation of the thing that is mind-blowing in its own.
Right.
And I remember being in
very different first-person experiences.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's sort of funny that because I'm not, to be honest, a big Doom and id fan, but I still do have this very vivid memory of playing this the first time at a friend's house in college.
Same as me, although not in college.
Shareware.
I was out of college.
Yeah, were you?
I was. Yeah. I graduated in '93.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And boy, wait till you hear where I played it.
Okay, I can't wait.
No.
But I just remember, like, I don't think I had known or played MYST, to be honest. So I guess Wolfenstein, I would have played Wolfenstein, of course, in the shareware version. And I was playing PC games, but like RPGs and like, Eye of the Beholder was one that I probably would have been.
For me, I would have been playing Ultima like 7 at the time.
Yeah. But Eye of the Beholder, I mentioned because first person, grid-based movement, right? But not free movement.
Of the wizardries and
Yeah, and so that kind of, those D&D games were sort of my touchstone, and then you see this, which free look around except for vertical, and the tone, the speed, the action of it, and I'm just looking over my buddy's shoulder on his PC, and he's like, "You got to look at this thing. Look at this," and I'm like, I'm just mind blowing. And we talked about this in terms of Dark Forces, because I never really got into and kind of the hooks. It didn't get hooks in me because of the tone and the sort of subject matter. I just, hell and demons and all that kind of stuff was just not something I was interested in. Yeah. That's why Dark Forces was like, oh my gosh, right? Because that was something I was.
Okay, so
But what's your story for?
Yeah, so this was, I had already, I guess I was entering grad school. I was in grad school maybe. This was one of those, few games, and it didn't really kind of fully mature until a little bit later. But around this time, I went to visit somebody actually who you know and who shares your hairdo.
What?
Who you've worked with.
What?
And who I brought into LucasArts, who introduced me to this game.
Chris Corey?
Chris Corey introduced me to Doom, and in a certain way, like, put me on the path to like, video games have changed, right? I went and saw him probably in the fall of '93 or something, and he had this and put it on discs for me. Not the whole thing, just like the shareware thing is like, you should check this out, like, because Doom, man, it's the thing, and like people are making levels, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this, right?
That's exactly what people were saying back then.
Right, yeah.
Doom,
hey,
man.
Hey, look first hit of Doom's free, man.
It's the thing. Look at this, man.
No, but we went to he was living in Northern Virginia at the time. We went down and visited him for a weekend or something, and he had he was working already in the financial sector, basically. He already had a killer PC or whatever for the time. Some crazy 386. Like, oh man, right? Or even a 486, I don't remember. And yeah, he put that and actually a compiler on a disc for me across, and I still have them.
Do you really?
I still have the 3.5s, yeah.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure. I don't think I've thrown them out yet.
We've talked about your hoarding problem, so they got to be in there somewhere.
So here it was in a desk that I never cleaned out. It's just a desk that moves. It was my desk when I was a kid, and I just have it.
You have the desk? That's how you have the discs?
Yes, they're in the desk. They're in the desk drawer.
Oh my gosh!
We're definitely off.
This is a whole nother topic, but that's awesome. Okay,
it's in my work office now.
I knew. You sit at a child's desk when you work.
I do not sit at the child's
That's
desk.
what I heard.
Nope.
I forgot. I knew you and Chris knew each other, but I didn't know that there was that kind of connection.
That's how he came into the company, was through me, and he called me after I started LucasArts. Like, so you're working at LucasArts, and that's how he got an interview. Anyway, but you
see Doom for the first time.
I saw it for the first time, and
all of us
brought it back. Yeah.
Well, and you were already heading in. Like, you were already technical in nature, and
yes.
And I wasn't. I had no idea I was going to get into the games at this time. I was studying theater at the time, right?
Right.
And that's this theater buddy is who showed it to me. And we were all gamers and had been, so we all shared that in common. But what did you think? Like, as somebody who was already thinking, kind of, you had technical chops.
Right.
What was the mind blowing aspect of it? Why did Chris want you to see
how fast it was?
Yeah.
How fast it was rendering these things. Because I had played a little bit of Wolfenstein, like on lab computers or whatever, which were not super high end. They weren't bad, but they weren't like top of the line or whatever. And at the time, I was just like, I can't believe how quickly this moves. And watching him play, and he may have even had a network in his house, like that he had run a wire into like his roommates. He shared a house with somebody, and they may have even played together and had a LAN, right?
Wow.
But it was like literally like their computers were linked together, but so not like a LAN party LAN, but yeah, just seeing that and going, oh man, like things have changed. I mean, you could just see it. You could just see like, oh, things are different now. I mean, I felt very similarly about MYST.
Yeah.
Like, when seeing that, I was like, oh, wow.
That's a big deal.
Right?
Yeah.
And this was a very similar kind of experience. Like, I had no idea that this was a possible thing.
It's interesting, to think about the year, like we talked about with those other games. But, I mean, you could argue that Day of the Tentacle was a very good pinnacle example of that sort of medium.
Absolutely.
Within sub-medium. And then we talked about MYST so much, right? And then the media that you use to... And then this is such like the polar opposite.
And this harkens back, when you say Ultima, to me this harkens back to when I was playing games in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, some friend has a disc and we copy it and we do that weird thing where you paste over the thing so you don't...
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you cover over the 5 1/4 floppy.
Nobody listening knows what you're talking about.
The write protection. Yeah, right. So it used to be that you were not supposed to be able to copy a disc.
God, I forgot about that.
If you cut a little hole in this place where the drive would basically put a little literal mechanical thing would push through the disc if there was a hole, and if not, it would hit the disc itself and be like, oh, I can write to this disc.
Yeah, I remember.
Or I can copy from this disc, I guess. Right, I can copy from this disc.
I just remembered.
Or whatever. Yeah, it's like maybe I can write to this disc, but there was no real protection. That's why you had code wheels and things like. There's no way to prevent. Now we have online whatever, and it's different. This really harkens back to that because it's just people, and it was their model to get it out there. It's like, you can literally just copy this first episode that we played and give it to anybody.
It's free to play.
Free to play. Yeah, it's free to play. They called it shareware.
Yeah.
In the hopes that you would then ask for the $20 version, I guess, or whatever it was, $10 version. I don't remember.
It's funny that I didn't even dawn on me just kind of the business model of this, right?
Yeah.
That we're talking about this because it is very much like the demo or
but there was no
free. There's no
microtransactions.
No microtransactions, but the concept of or even today, like buying the first game and then charging for DLC, right? It's like you get more chapters essentially. Because in this model, what we're going to be playing for these 3 chapters is like the first one was free, and then the other if you wanted to finish, right? And we'll talk about
that. Wasn't the first. This wasn't the first one to do that. They've certainly done that with even Keen. Commander Keen was that way.
Yeah.
You know, and
shareware in general as a culture,
right?
Kind of a.
But this is the one that broke out.
Yeah,
this is the one that broke through, and I think a lot of it was because the speed was what it was.
Yeah.
For example, you look at Wolfenstein, and we'll talk about things like the projectiles and all of that stuff. But Wolfenstein was very much like instant hit. Something's facing you. Like you don't see those projectiles moving through the world.
Was it hit? Would that be considered hit scan at that point?
I guess you call it hit scanning. And the models were simpler, and just everything was simpler. And the rendering technology was a lot more similar to. Even the Ultima stuff, because we were talking pre-show, and it's basically a grid, which means you can make a lot of assumptions about what you can see.
Yeah, right.
And here it's arbitrary, weird carving, because that's not going to work to represent hell or hell poking through into our universe or whatever's going on, in that. So so there's a lot going on. Even walking around in some of the scenes. Primitive as it is, I was like, oh yeah, this is way more organic than anything at the time.
Right.
For something that runs in real time. So.
Yeah, I mean...
And maybe we'll talk the deep tech later, because I didn't spend time reading the PSP again.
Yeah, I think if you do have time throughout the series to get... Because I won't be able to, but digging into some of that. Because we kind of touched a tiny little story we talked about with Dark Forces when we played, as far as the rendering tech, right? And as far as, like, how trailblazing they really were. Yeah. From an efficiency standpoint and a speed standpoint. And, we probably won't get into the details of, like, the individuals too much, but... They were pushing kind of the efficiency boundaries in a way where people. I don't want to overspeak it, but I feel like, or blow it out of proportion. But I feel like they were doing things that didn't feel possible. Right. Well, and that's. I mean, they also tried to do a side scroller on the PC at the time, right? And that's come out in the news, and that's been reported separately about like trying to do a Mario on the PC. Yeah. And Dangerous Dave or whatever was it?
Well, they literally did like a Mario screen, and they were like, we can actually make this happen, but nobody could do that at the time to like literally just scroll. Yeah. And here, so on the PC, the issue is rendering any pixel more than once, basically. Like you want to avoid having to overdraw at all. And that was a huge thing for us even into the PS2 era. It's like anytime you're drawing anything on the screen, like large particles were a real no-no, especially if they had alpha, because they had the sort, and like you had to put them, and then you had to draw them all because they'd add together. Suddenly you're like drawing a pixel 17 times, and you're like, now performance is gone. So they had to efficiently render this space in such a way that it basically wouldn't draw anything twice. Not even just like the sprite's different, but sprites are a different thing. Like just drawing the sprites in front, that's fine. But like drawing this whole thing,
right?
Figuring out what you're going to draw and then redrawing it over the top of it is a big no-no. I mean, that's why everything was wireframe in games like
right.
The Eye of the Beholder or whatever. I mean, that was probably filled, but it was...
No, that was... Eye of the Beholder specifically was filled.
Was filled.
Yeah,
but
it did have... But
it was effectively the same technology from Ultima 1.
Well, yeah, and it was explicitly grid-based, where when you move forward, you see the next square
section,
drawing, right? Like, it's not smooth in any way.
Right.
And it
almost looks like Space Quest, where you can, if you slowed it down on a slow PC, you can actually see it draw things in order.
Yeah, and if you did a 180, you'd lose your bearings very quickly, right? Because you have no sense of relativity because you're just going. So that was like, those are my main touchstones, and I didn't play much of Wolf, but I don't remember why I didn't feel as impressed by Wolf as I did with Doom, and some of the things that
I think the organics, things look more organic, but also it is a fantastic location rather than this is basically an office building. Like most of Wolfenstein takes place in German office buildings, right? It's like you walk up, there's a wall, it's got swastika.
Well, it's supposed to be a castle. But
sure.
No, but you're right in
it's
its
like
simplicity.
it's like this room, right? It's only even less stuff in it, obviously, right? It's just four walls and a dude running around in it.
Well, and
yelling.
I think that
attention.
The enemies weren't as interesting too, and this is fantastic.
And when they shot it, you just saw. Yeah, you might see. I don't even remember if they had muzzle flash. I don't know. I think they did.
Yeah,
for some enemies.
Yeah. Much
a dog might run up to you,
but this was just a leap.
Oh, hugely!
And I think as a segue, some of the notes that we wrote down for the first episode, the things that I think we take so much for granted as a leap for this particular game that actually have a big sort of subconscious impact are things like elevation, windows, and I would even say skybox, right? Like things. So when you look out the window, you have the sense of a skybox that has been rendered that I don't know what the lineage of the skybox is in this context, if they were getting that from somebody else, or if that's flight sims, or where it was coming from. But marriage,
it was doing more than clearing a color, but not much more.
Yeah. But I mean, the marriage of those things all put together has a better sense of place. And then because this one, Wolf, you were saying Wolf didn't. I couldn't remember if they had a map or not, but when you look at the map in this one, which is just astounding that they have a map at all, which goes a little bit back to our Dark Forces conversation, it looks like a CAD top-down view.
Yes.
Right? Like, so you can see the organic nature, like you said, or the sort of, the non-grid.
What Darren Stinnett said to me, one time when I was playing Doom 2 or whatever in the office, after we shipped Starfighter, I played Doom 2 with Andrew Termsey. And he was like, back when I started, this map would have been the game, right? It's like this is the game, and it's interesting looking at that because it also you can see the arcade nature of this game in when you play it as that 2D thing. I mean, you don't see the projectiles, but you get
you can open the map and move around.
Yeah, and I did tonight. I was literally, I was like, okay, where haven't I been yet? I've killed all the stuff, so where haven't I been? And I was trying to move enough that I could see more of the map because you can't see the whole thing sometimes. It was one of the later levels where the maps get too big, I think. Because I don't think they had learned yet how to signpost where to go. That's a common problem with this, is because they have limited texture. The textures are so limited. They only have 4 or whatever, or 6 or whatever, some limited number. It's very hard to keep track of where you are.
Well, and
or
I
direct
think
you in a direction.
They were still developing a vocabulary for this kind of level design, right? As we talked about with the Dark Forces series as well, we talked about how Darren and everyone on that project were going after level designers, right? They didn't know how to find them, right? So they went after architecture students,
right?
So it's like, well, it makes sense for some, but.
And this is a group of punks in Texas, right? Who weren't any of that, right? I mean, it's really interesting how they approach making this game versus how George's Money approaches making this game, right? It's also a different thing.
And the goals, right? I think it is interesting that we've played that one already because we can compare the two quite a bit. And as Darren talked a lot about, the focus on story and what Star Wars brings to it, and the focus on sense of place, and it kind of, as Matt talked about, the concept that this was a real, real space, not just gameplay. And this game feels much more like raw gameplay.
Right.
Yes, I'm on Mars, and yes, I'm roughly in a computer, facility. Like, I forget some of the names, but it's like, it's cool. That the top-down map is cool. It's
neat that they give you this sense of natural progression of like, I'm going to make my way to that cool-looking building on this picture.
But when I'm in that level, I can't identify necessarily.
Not to the degree. It's certainly not like you can in Dark Forces, where it's like, I'm in such and such a place. I'm on Coruscant.
I'm in a sewer,
or I'm in a sewer,
sewage system. Which,
or even being in that weird maze where it's that circular maze where you had to kind of make your way in and figure out how to open all the doors. I forget where that was, but it's like, it's
Imperial Palace.
Exactly. It's like it's a sense of place, or Jabba's ship or whatever.
Well, and you can see that would probably have been an innovation to press on once everyone had played Doom. Right. It's like, okay, this is a sea change. Yeah. This game coming out changed
a lot.
It changed a lot.
Changed my life.
It changed yours. I mean, when we say first
Quake
person,
was out by the time, but we didn't say first person shooter at the time. We said Doom clone.
Right, fair enough, Doom clone. But I'm just saying, we say first-person shooter today, and there's obviously the Wolf 3D gets the sort of like the card for
and whatever Dune, was there a Dune one? Or was that the RTS?
That's
the RTS.
Dune 2 was the first RTS, right. Technically.
Sorry. Crossing my streams there.
But I mean,
there was one though. There's Marathon.
There's Marathon. I forget.
They're after this. I think they were.
I think they were developed in tandem, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
They had superior rendering technology, actually, in some ways. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll play that one
someday. If we can get Max, it'll run it.
It's got to be. Doesn't it run someplace?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah,
I haven't played it since 1995 or whatever.
But I mean, this is genre defining.
Right?
Yeah. And industry defining, because as we've talked about throughout the podcast, lots of first-person oriented games, right, have been migrated to other genres like Deus Ex in an RPG sense or whatever, So, but as far as like moving through with the first person, as I think we had a question a long time ago where people asked like, "What's our favorite camera view?" or whatever, right?
Yes.
And I think I said first person is my preference.
Yes, you did.
And this is the game that really sort of cements that concept. And it's never been the same since, I think, the industry.
I mean, it's a thing that, I've worked on games that are first person that are not shooters, right? But that have taken the same vocabulary that's in this game, broadly speaking. Interact with panels. Sure, you can interact with things that are smaller than panels or whatever today, But yeah, broadly speaking, like, look at thing, get information about world, or have a thing happen because I interacted with thing, right? I was trying to remember if, like, the original System Shock is 94, but they were so close on the heels, right? So there's just...
Everyone was trying
to
do similar stuff. And when we played Ultima, we talked, right? Ultima is probably one that we can... Underworld, that we can talk about. And... one of the things that we discussed, I believe, in that series was the controls, right? Where they have, we want to be in first person. We want to be able to have all of these verbs, even just movement subverbs. And their solution to that was semi-crazy, right? With that cursor thing where you're moving it across the screen.
System Shock had the same thing.
System Shock, all the looking...
Like, it's a part of a window. That's the other thing. It's like, this is a full screen.
Yeah, full screen,
Which is a whole...
Simplified.
This is a thing.
It's a lot of the themes we talked about with Diablo in simplifying the RPG. There's a similar thing going on here where it's like taking core concept of just shooting a weapon and just simplifying it around. Yeah. And later we'll probably get to like the key cards and sort of how you move through the world and what your motivations are. But it's very simple, basically. There's not much going on. It's just fight demons and stuff and have fun using these great weapons, right?
Yeah.
Really pretty good feeling weapons.
The weapons are quite good for their time.
For this time, right?
And what they do to you, like, and in particular the imps, and we'll talk about like the pacing and stuff like that, because I think that's actually something that's changed in modern design.
Did you fight an imp in this?
The imps, the brown ones that fire fireballs.
Oh, that's what those are called. Okay,
yes.
I was thinking. Okay,
not the cacodemon or something like that.
Okay.
The beholder-looking things.
Do they have like more flying? Something that's flying around?
There's a skull that comes in later.
Okay,
I
didn't know those were called
the
imps.
Lost Souls. Yeah, the brown ones are called imps.
Okay.
But yeah, later the Lost Souls come in. Those are the skulls that fly at you, and we'll fight other stuff.
Yeah.
And then
I don't think I played. I think I mentioned this in pre-show, but I don't think I played all 3 episodes of this.
I did.
So,
but it's funny how little is in this first episode.
Yeah. As far as like how few things there are.
How few enemies.
Yeah.
There's the grunt, green-haired Marine. There's the sergeant,
shotgun,
for whom I mocked you already, who has the shotgun. There's the imp.
Yeah.
There's the
running
Pinky.
It's called Pinky?
No, but
the one that runs at you.
Yeah, the one that runs at you with the big mouth.
Yeah,
and the invisible Pinky.
And
then at the end there's the Baron, and that's it.
And those are Barons.
Those are Barons of Hell. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Yeah. Barons of Heck.
But there's a lot of other things that happen that evolve in first-person shooters from this, and that we took as well, like just emergent design from mixing these things up, and what they're good at. Like the shotgun guy, if he gets close to you, you don't want him close to you, right? And meanwhile, you got the pistol guy, and he can shoot you and do the same damage no matter where he is, right? And the imps, you've got that sort of slow-moving projectile that you can dodge, but if they get close, there's not enough time to dodge. I mean, there's just like
you can start seeing them mixing them up in certain rooms.
Tons, tons. And then it's like, and then you throw these pinkies, and it's like, oh my god. Those could come from if they come from the side, it's like now I've got to deal with those and have to know that they're coming from there.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
And audio, I mean, you know, there's some pretty good, simple enemy audio design going on where you hear before you see often, and so you start changing your tactics. And even
for the pickups. You can hear the blue orb that's like the 200% health, and it kind of goes, and it's like it's munching on something. I don't know what the heck
that's so creepy.
Doing. It is the creepiest thing because you think it's an enemy.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's the weird, that's wild.
I mean, let alone the tone overall, right?
Yeah,
that's a whole nother topic that we'll probably talk about over time, but there was a little bit of the sort of rebel feel of like, this is like over.
I wouldn't even say rebel. This is like, high school kids drawing in their notebooks type, oh man, I can do the upside down pentagram,
I actually made a note. I made a note of the cover because I'm playing on Switch, so you see the icon of the cover, and the cover is so
he's got his hand down,
so high school.
He's got the one gun.
It's a drawing someone would have drawn in their high school notebook. Kind of thing. It's like
I remember when I was in high school, I was in a band, and we were always drawing our logo everywhere,
Yeah, it's like a hard rock, heavy metal logo.
Beavis and Butthead were drawing things like this in their notebooks, except they weren't good artists.
A little bit of Frank Frazetta in there too, with sort of like the Marine on top of the pose with just a horde of pile of enemies
standing atop.
So
knee deep in the dead, right? Is what?
Oh, that's the first episode, right? And I mean, that cover sums up the whole tone for me as well.
Yeah, the aesthetic is there, right in the cover.
It's all there, right? The even what minimal writing there is, right, with that little ending sequence and sort of like just the melodrama of it. But from that, they then unleash, no pun intended, all of the other things that'll be coming with it. And that comes all the way from the power-ups, like you mentioned, like just going overboard, which sets a trend for id, for the rest of their time when it comes to Quake and Quake 3 and like where they end up going. The speed, the enemy design, and and just sort of, I'll say gore. It's obviously very pixelated and very simple and kind of,
right, but
silly
they're
in a
showing
way.
Dead bodies and things like that, which was not super common at the time.
And some of the corpse sprites, like I don't know, one of the human enemies, it's like their guts are kind of.
Oh yeah,
it's like
But even the Baron's that way. It's like it decays as you
Yeah.
blast at it. Yeah.
But that was like, there was a titillation to that, right?
Sure.
Too, of like, oh, look at
Wow,
this.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is so gory.
Yeah,
How could they do? Oh my goodness, I just blew that guy up,
Right.
And then it just, and then jibs come from there later,
right,
and like, so it just
Quake,
keeps
for
going
sure.
and going and going.
Yeah, they definitely push in that direction. Yeah, in the same way. Like, you can definitely imagine them like, oh, what if we could like blow the arms off?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they don't get full Soldier of Fortune or whatever, but
No, but
they start pushing in that direction. And that's why we have Soldier of Fortune.
Right.
In whatever that
escalation.
was, 99 or something.
There's the escalation of all of that stuff, and I think that we won't ever get to talk about things like, we won't talk about every game in the series, but each one was pushing boundaries, like Doom 3, right? And like they have all of their touchstones where they kept that sort of going. But I think
they push design, but also technology, right? I mean, it's very much a technology-led company.
Yep, tech-led company. I think that the tone is, for me, more safely accomplished in 1 and 2 because of its art style, right? When you get to 3 and they're really trying hard to be super realistic and photorealistic and stuff, then it's sort of like, it's not really landing the same way. Yeah. And here it's like, this is just comic book, right?
It's juvenile.
And that's fine because it's like,
because that's what they can do. That's what the tech can handle. Yeah, and it's fine.
Yeah. It's a sweet spot of all of that stuff. Versus MYST, right? Same year, going for photorealistic, with these high res, pre-rendered sort of scenes, and you have much more of a sense of place. And I'm sitting in this place, and the music and everything, and
the themes are more serious.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's just this very different approach, and taking something much more methodical in MYST and being like, hey, this is reading Mysterious Island versus your comic books. Yeah, right?
Totally.
It's very much like, oh, these are one sort of person, this is another sort of person.
Novel versus comic.
Yeah, it really is. That's my touchstone.
Yeah, that's true. That's funny. I had forgotten that they both...
It's Marvel versus DC.
Oh no! Wait a second. I don't know how you can.
It's like taking an interesting
depends on which
character like Spider-Man instead of something like Batman. I've known Tim for a long time, and I know exactly which buttons to push.
Moving along, I do want to kind of hit the speed thing again, though, a little bit too. Speed and player physics, I guess, a little bit. We talked a little bit about it with Dark Forces, but I think, at least for me, I think we both commented on how we kind of forgot about how these older games are handling that, because it's not really a common thing these days.
Yeah, right.
Characters
very slidey.
Characters are a lot more sticky now, and a lot more precise in intent with the player input.
This is more like Mario, 2D Mario.
Yeah, and so is Dark Forces, but just that sense of it's very swimmy, it's very non-sticky, and there's physics to it, right? So you kind of have to really plan.
See, the thing is, like, dropping into this and playing it earlier, I was playing and would just like forget that I was streaming, and I'd look and people would be like, "Oh, that was cool," or whatever, and I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about because it's been a while since I looked at the chat.
It's been 30 seconds. It could have been 5 things.
It could have been a lot of things. But also, like, the skills came back super fast. Yeah. Like, and I think that the same thing happens with people who played a million Mario games. It's like they know the physics innately, and I know the physics of this game because especially Doom 2, I've played a ton. Yeah. And it's a longer game as well. And Doom 2 is like all the levels are. They learned a lot about like direction and stuff, like how to funnel you to the next thing. And
they just had no vocabulary, right?
Yeah, right.
They're just kind of trying to figuring it out. I mean, probably some,
especially here in a non-realistic setting, in the sense of like, oh, it's like this fantasy space base. First it's a castle. Like literally, okay, that's a floor of a castle. Like how big can it be? Like it can't be super weird and crazy. Like I don't know, Thief or something that we've played where anything can be super organic. Here you've got to they had to be super grounded, and now they're, okay, how do you know where you are? Mm-hmm. Hopefully you can remember, but there are times where I'm like, I saw a yellow door somewhere. Where am I?
No. The doors and the key cards aren't colored in any way, so you just have to go and figure it out.
The doors are colored if they have keys.
Oh, they have a yellow, blue, red?
You didn't notice that?
No,
yeah. All around the edges of the doors
it tells you
is
which
the
one.
color of what key you need.
I missed that. Because I'm usually just looking. I just go right up the door and I don't see the rim.
Yeah. The rim lighting is how you actually
got
know.
it. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So you can probably see that from a distance, I assume.
You can.
Yeah. I'm just not observant enough. Yeah.
Well, it's hard to see if you're coming in now. If you're coming kind of you have to be at 45 degrees. You can see it really clear.
Yeah, right.
So it depends on how you... because it is still somewhat gritty.
It is, yeah. It's, well, I mean, but then that's why there's a map, too, right? So they're leaning on that maybe a little bit, too much sometimes. But I mean, in retrospect, they're trailblazing, so I don't blame them for that.
Underworld,
yeah. I don't remember what year that was. That was after, right? Because System Shock was before Underworld. Correct. Okay, so it would have been maybe 96 or something.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't too far. It might have been 95. I'll look it up while we're talking.
But the I really would be interested to know how much the two were influencing each other to some degree too, because they were.
I'm sorry, Ultimate Underworld, March of 92. Was
it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So maybe that's actually what I was thinking about as far as a first-person game that was before it.
Yeah. But
it was in a window. It was in a quarter of the screen or whatever, not even.
Well, in a window, and just it's kind of a plotting game, right?
It's a lot slower.
You're you're kind of going through.
And by the way, you have to use every key on the keyboard to do stuff. It's like, you want to climb up the ladder? That's a different key from climbing down.
Yeah, and even just looking around. Right. So it's just a whole different world. Yeah, actually, now that I think about when I was playing Ultimate, it would have been before this. Yeah, but the speed. Mm-hmm. I turned on auto run.
Right.
And you just go.
Which I don't think is available to me on the PC.
Oh, really?
I think it's maybe shift. That's not... You have to put the shift key down.
Yeah, well, there's a...
You're on the Switch.
I'm on the Switch, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm wondering if the analog, because this game wasn't built for an analog stick. So we'll see how I do when it comes to aiming sensitivity.
I'm sure they've modified that fine.
Yeah, maybe. There's definitely some aim assist. I don't know if there's some magnetism and things like that though on the enemy. So we'll see how.
Probably not.
I think it's just just
well, because the turn speed is not even using a mouse. So I mean, there is mouse look in this game. It's very primitive. You can only look left, right, and on the PC, and the forward back actually moves the character, which is. I remember trying Doom 2 and being like, I'll just go back to the keyboard.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't been so far from using the mouse only keyboard at that point. Nowadays I can't. I could not play this game with just keyboard like I did in 1994.
Oh, you mean with arrow keys?
With arrow keys to look. Yeah.
That was the way.
And I remember at the time saying, oh no, this is superior. Why would you ever use the mouse? I was so confident. Mm-hmm. I mean, because as a programmer, I try never to use the mouse anyway. Mm-hmm. Still, 25 years later. Yeah. But yeah, at the time, a friend of mine, Nick Foster, in grad school, showed me the error of my ways when he played with a mouse. Yeah. He could, especially with Quake, more so. With Quake.
Quake was the fork in the road for a lot of people. Yeah. It's just so fast. Yeah. Once I turned that on, that auto run, and I didn't look back. You're just moving.
Yeah.
You're so, and I think that was another sort of differentiator for it too.
Yeah.
Where it just embraced that high adrenaline.
Yeah.
Holy cow, what is happening? And things are,
and when it's moving that fast, I think you naturally immerse more easily because you don't have time. To stop and think, right?
Yeah, totally.
You don't have time to look at chat, right? You're just I'm in it now.
Well, you're dodging projectiles that are coming at you and all sorts of stuff. You know,
or you're coming around a corner and there's a thing to deal with. And it's like, do I dodge back or do I shoot? Like, do I have time to shoot? You know, am I still reloading or whatever? You know, well, you're not reloading, but am I still in the firing? Because there's a chain. Like, it takes a moment to fire. Right. It's like, oh, I fired, and now I have to wait until I can fire again, or if you've got the shotgun or something like that. Right. Even to switch weapons. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I fired, I can't switch weapons till I'm ready till I could fire again. There's a lot of stuff like that that's just the fine tuning of that stuff is something we'll have to we'll be able to get a guest about this and talk about that as well.
Are there any in this first episode? Are there any, other than the last level, are there any levels that really stand out to you or moments? Because I'll be honest, like, other than the sort of general feel of having elevations, having windows, having an outside and an inside, doors, some tricks with lighting and things like that, hasn't been a lot of memorable rooms or anything.
Sure. So for me, the opening is super memorable because we talked pre-show about, like,
you see
the
dead
Super
Marines.
Metroid. You see some dead Marines. You walk around. You have a sense of, like, oh, I can walk around. There's a button I can press. I don't know what the heck it does, but I can press it. Mm-hmm. There's some armor. There's lots of little helmets or whatever, and the little potion things that are the health, which don't make any sense. Like, none of that. Theming-wise, you're like, what are they doing?
Video, you know.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's clear iconography for video games at the time. Like, oh, it's a potion, it must be health.
Yeah.
Why do they have that on Mars? I don't think too much, you know. So that whole moment I really like because it has that same feel of, like, what happened here. And if I can remember playing this for the first time and not knowing what the heck was going on, and, like, coming to that first door and there's guys who start shooting at you, but they're far away. And, like, you start shooting back, but you're terrible at it. You might kill one. Mm-hmm. And when I played it again, because I played it before I went to Portland, I played a little bit Thursday night. And there was this moment where the door then closed on me, because the doors just automatically close. And then I went and bumped the door again, and it went up, and the guy was right there. Because he had come, all the way forward, coming after me, because the AI is super simple. Mm-hmm. But it's a great moment of, like, that tension. Like, you even see that in, like, It. The movie, it's like there's a thing in the background. You cut away to another character. You cut back to the character you're focusing on. The characters. This adult is closer, right? It's a great sort of horror moment, and it sets up. Even though I don't often feel that horror playing the game most of the time, that was still how I entered the game. Yeah, and so it sort of carries through. Yeah, of like, oh, this is horrifying. Yeah. Like, these terrible. Here are all these Space Marines I theoretically knew, and I'll look at all those Tims. Well, there was shotgun-toting Tims everywhere.
It does look like me a little bit, yeah. There was the, I don't know if it's the first or second level where you get one of the key cards, I think, and then they turn all the lights off and they open a a Master Plaza behind you, and that's very
things like that are impactful.
Yeah.
The one thing that I do remember from just purely level design was, like, there's an area where there's a wall you can go around either side. It's almost shaped like a plane wing. Like, there's a slow way around and there's a faster way around. It's kind of like concave on the right side and it's kind of convex on the left side. Mm-hmm. And that's organic looking. It's rare and unusual in the levels. There's not a lot of that. But I remember that one spot, I was like, oh yeah, you didn't see this before here. Like, before this game, this didn't exist.
Yeah.
In a real-time sense.
The other, talking about windows and things like that, there's been multiple times when I appreciate they have a pretty good use of seeing across in a bigger room to see an enemy, like on a catwalk or like behind some alpha texture, where you're like, how do I get out there?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And that moment is something you wouldn't have gotten in Wolf 3D, right? Where you get to see, like, oh, I now have a goal.
I can see across this toxic sludge or whatever, and there's dudes over there. Oh, I can see.
And there's like a catwalk,
there's a yellow door.
Yeah.
How do I can't get through. Right. I don't have a yellow key. I can't get through that door. You actually have to go the other way or whatever.
So they're leveraging this new type of geometry that they were able to make. Many of the levels have that kind of concept. Where you see a goal out, and you're intrigued to figure out how to. And you see there's a door at the end of that catwalk. So like, okay, the door must be over there. Look on the map. Kind of work your way around.
And I bet you want more of
there.
that because that's your thing, right? That's exploratory.
I love that stuff. Yeah.
Because that's a strength of like Outlaws. Because there's a lot of that stuff.
A lot of LucasArts level design have that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the goal of a lot of level designers, to have that sense of place and sense of story to the. And it's not about recreating reality; it's just recreating the sense of a place with a cohesive kind of form to it.
And having signposting of like, oh, that's a place I want to go. Of course, later. I've worked on Skyrim. It's like you can go anywhere you can see. Yeah. Right?
But you still need landmarks.
That's the same thing. Yeah. And you need landmarks. That's important. I mean, it's a huge thing in Breath of the Wild. They're excellent at it. They've perfected it. They're so good. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, anyway.
Don't get me going on that game.
I know. How many hours? 190 hours? Is that what you said?
190 hours, yeah.
Wow.
I went back to it to kind of finish it off, but no hints.
I know.
I'm going to find it all myself.
I'm going to do it.
No guides.
I'll probably have to start it over because I don't remember the first thing about it.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah,
it's fine.
I'd suggest it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Off to a good start. I'm excited to play more. I'm excited to play. I think at least the last episode I didn't play, and we have some fun bonus episodes planned too. Yeah. So we'll get to play some even newer stuff when it comes to this game, which is very nice synergy that it's out. Though a bit of our plan, but
there's some. I mean, certainly this is a franchise that continues. First of all, we're a little ahead of Doom Eternal, I guess. Doom Eternal, right?
Yeah, Eternal. Okay. Yeah.
So we're a little ahead of that, but.
I'd like to play. I definitely want to play Doom 2016.
Oh yeah, we should totally do that.
Because I haven't played that
yet.
At
the time, yeah.
Unfortunately, and so I'd like to at least play some of it.
It's really interesting the ways in which it feels like this.
Yeah, we haven't even.
And the ways it don't.
I've heard the secrets are good in that game, and so we haven't got to that topic. We'll maybe talk in the future about that, but there's plenty more to talk about. But it seems like they definitely found the spirit of this game. Yeah, and two in this one. So anyway.
All right, we're at coming in on 50 minutes. You want to start turning the feedback?
Let's do feedback.
Before we do feedback, and I didn't prep you for this. Do you want to quickly address that elephant over there?
Okay.
That first-person shooter elephant over there?
You did mention it to me.
Yeah, but not tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I am no longer with Microsoft and 343, as some of the listeners know and have been asking for a little bit. There really isn't too much to talk about, to be honest. Just time to move on. Yeah. Time to do new things, and burnout's a real thing. Sure. Things like that can be uttered, but no real details. But it's an official thing.
No super drama.
No drama. It was just there's a great team that is still there working hard on Infinite, and I still believe in that game quite heavily, and there's a lot of good talent there. So I'm more thinking of them than anything. Yeah. We'll see where my future takes me. Yeah. But it is official. It was eventually leaked out there and got out there. So it's something to address so we can move forward. But
we had some questions via email, and we're not going to read those specifically because they sort of were asking the same sort of question, like, how's Tim? What's going on? Etc.
I'm fine.
And you're fine. I mean, well. But for my part, I mean, somebody was like, well, what's this like? And I was like, well, I've been through this too. Yeah. But it's a profession. Like, this is a job.
At the end of the day, it's business.
Yeah. And people generally want to leave on good terms, and to leave you on good terms. Like, most of the time, not all the time, actually, this game that we're playing, maybe not all the time. But in general, especially as the industry has matured, it's like, well, we understand, like, this takes a lot out of people. I left Fallout 4 in the middle, and that was tough because that was the first time I ever even thought about leaving something in the middle. And it's hard to leave something in the middle because like you said, you love the team, you want to work with the team, and I stayed on a project that I knew was not good for me because I didn't want to leave Well, level designers in the lurch because they were my clients or whatever at the time, years ago. So it can be hard. But you also have to look to yourself and your own needs and goals and how tired you are and what you need. So,
but thanks for the questions and the well wishes and such. Yeah. But I'm good. I'm good and moving on.
Yeah,
looking for the future.
Yeah, good. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Addressed.
All right, addressed. We will move forward.
Yes.
So you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, email 1. Yeah, email 1. Subject, SNES Classic versus Blast Processing! Exclamation point. Oh, boy. Sam Thomas. Hello, your episode today reminded me whichever one that was. Last one? Was
yes,
the last
one? That's SNES
referring to?
When we played
right.
Fighter
Of
2.
course, yes.
Not 3.
Your episode today reminded me of this memorable commercial from the Sega Genesis era. Sega showed shots of Sonic the Hedgehog and Echo the Dolphin, crediting the console's, quote, blast processing. I don't know why I did finger quotes for you. This doesn't help the podcast. For making games faster than the competition. At the end of the commercial, they showed what the SNES peasants were stuck with, Super Mario Kart. Well, that's what that's stuck with. That game's amazing. You can check out the 30-second ad on YouTube. He gives a link. Oh, and give Secret of Mana co-op a shot if you get the chance. It's a hack and slash with 3-player co-op, much closer to Zelda than Final Fantasy gameplay-wise. Thanks and love the show, Sam. What is blast processing, sir?
Yeah, blast processing isn't a thing. There's no such thing.
What?
That's what the marketing department decided to call the fact that they could do certain things faster on Sega than they could do on the SNES. So they actually had a higher throughput in their memory. Their bandwidth for memory was higher.
Okay.
They could do stuff faster. Blast processing doesn't mean anything. It's not an acronym. Nobody ever called it that.
There's not a processor.
There is nothing.
That is doing...
There's no processing. They had faster direct memory addressing to put stuff on screen.
So their memory pipeline was faster.
Exactly. They had more bandwidth.
So what would have been an example that they could show to use that to show that something is faster? If you have faster memory,
they could have conceivably they could render more sprites, for example, a million rings in Sonic or something like that. Right? It's the same sprite, but it's being rendered multiple places on the screen faster.
Got it.
But it
doesn't necessarily make it faster. It's just they can.
Their
do
chip
more?
Speed was actually faster as well.
Oh, okay.
So they had a 7.
That's blast
7 point. Oh yeah, they're blasting through that memory, blasting it. They're blasting that memory onto the screen.
That's where they came up with that.
Yeah. I mean, and then they made their character like the fast character, right? You know, so there's,
pretty clever.
It was a clever. I remembered that when I saw the email, I was like, oh yeah, that was a thing.
It must have worked on me because I swapped to Genesis.
You did.
I don't remember that.
Wow, the marketing shills got to you.
It got me.
It got to you.
I'm highly impressionable.
I mean, it's funny because often. Design generally wins over the tech, over the hardware tech. Because
that's
the Dreamcast.
That's what you say.
The Dreamcast had really interesting, how they were getting performance on the Dreamcast was really interesting, or even the Saturn. They always had kind of interesting things that they were trying, but sometimes they were hard to really.
I wonder where all those architects went after Sega shut down their hardware.
I'm pretty sure that they're contractually obligated to kill themselves. It's a joke.
Oh, jeez. So nonsense.
They
failed, and so
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, to your point of them being creative and thinking outside the box on how they were pushing things, some creative hardware people there that just vanished. Hopefully they got.
I mean, that's always the thing. Is you're trying to make the best machine you can for the price point.
Yeah.
Right. And people have been fired before because they changed the price point.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard that story about the PlayStation.
Maybe you've told me that before.
The PlayStation 1, basically, the American president, Sony president or vice president or whatever for America came out and just said, such and such date, $299, $199, whatever it was for the original PlayStation. And the price was $100 higher, according to the Japanese execs.
Right.
And he just came out and said, no, that's the wrong. He was like, no way. I don't remember what his name is.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up. This is kind of off the cuff, but it's like, and he just came out and said, it wasn't like Phil Harrison. He was like next.
He was later.
Yeah, but anyway, so whoever was before Phil Harrison, he just came out and said, such and such date, $199, $299, whatever the price was, and he got
fired.
I mean, it was 9 months later, but it was that was why. It was like at E3 he said this, and by next March he was gone. Yeah, because he just defied. Yeah, but he knew like this is the price point that people will buy it. Yeah, and that was a big part of Sony's success and PlayStation's success in America. It was the right price point.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Anyway,
not blast processing.
Not blast processing. It was their. I don't know. Anyway. I have one here from, and I scrolled down. Okay, Walker Farrell. Thanks for writing in, Walker. He says subject, no subject. Where's the subject? Oh, here it is. MYST. Hi, Tim and Brett. So excited you're finally doing a series on Doom. I had to skip playing Castlevania, but I can't miss this one, especially since it just re-released for Switch for $5, and I get to play it on my big TV for the first time. It holds up amazingly well and maps nicely to modern console control schemes, unlike, say, GoldenEye 007, which is borderline unplayable now. Oh, okay. The one thing that throws me about playing Doom in 2019 is the sprite-based projectiles. I often find it difficult to judge the position of 2D sprites flying at me in a pseudo 3D space, especially if comparing to modern standouts like Nier Automata, which was the last game I played. I have a question regarding the history of level design. I also recently played Riven after listening to your MYST series. Footnote, Walker, you can go, hopefully it's still up there, but I played Riven myself after we finished MYST. I don't know if it's still on my Twitch thing or not. I don't keep track. Anyway, and certain elements of the navigation did remind me of Metroidvanias, specifically the way I often found myself uncovering new vantages on previously visited areas. Of course, unlike the Metroidvania style, there was little in the way of power-ups. Instead, I came back to old places armed with new knowledge, and most of the powering up took place entirely in my head. Anyway, even though interlocking worlds of this style had existed in 2D for some time, I couldn't think of an earlier representation of this kind of layering in an apparently 3D game environment. Now I'm seeing a lot of it within the self-contained levels of Doom. And here we were just talking about this. For example, I think it's in the 4th or 5th level, the exit is visible quite early, but requires that you lift a bridge via a switch, which isn't accessible until you've found 2 or 3 keys. Once you finally lift the bridge, instead of a full backtrack, you're spat out right next to it, letting you go directly to the exit.
Great example.
It is, yeah. That's basically the yellow key that you were...
I think that's the one I was probably thinking of.
Yeah, you look across, you can see there's that alpha
bridge
thing, and there's... Yeah, totally that. Does this kind of level design in 3D originate with Doom, or does it go back further? I don't think Wolfenstein 3D was capable of it, for example. I'm excited to know you're thinking of doing a 16-bit JRPG at some point. FF6 or Earthbound would be great, but you can... But if you can get it, my recommendation would be Chrono Trigger, which is kind of a capstone for the era, while also being a little shorter and easier than most of the other classics. Keep up the great work. Best. He's speaking your language.
Yeah.
Shorter and easier.
Chrono Trigger is shorter?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Well, you have to play it 7 times to get the right ending.
Okay. Yeah. Not happening. I will get the wrong ending.
Yeah.
I mean... I don't know. I think the answer is yes.
I think the answer is yes. I don't remember things like that. I mean, there's animation here that was not present in previous games.
I mean, elevators moving the player upward like that, where like
yeah. I mean, there's no spaces
Ultima
on top of spaces, really.
Ultima didn't have that. I mean.
No.
I think there's some... There's some times when you move platforms, but it's very much like not real time. I don't remember, but... Yeah,
there are spaces where there is something like on the 2nd level where you have to do that weird jumping puzzle across the spaces, but I don't remember if there's any elevators.
I don't know if they move, though.
There's definitely no space or time.
I think it's ramps.
Space over space.
I think it's like you fall down, you got to go into a ramp. Anyway... Yeah, I think he's right. I think that example...
And they do teleporters and things.
Yeah. I think that example that he gave, though, is really the best. That's a really good example of how much they're pushing it. And we talked a lot about similar stuff in Dark Forces as well, which was riffing off of this. So, in so many ways. And I think they push the boundaries even further. But I think the fundamentals I can't remember if there was.
Yeah,
anybody
I don't.
else.
I would be very
Especially
surprised.
capability-wise.
I'd be very surprised because I think the big one is like animating parts of the geometry, which I hadn't even really thought about, and I'm glad you pointed it out because I didn't even make a note of it because it's like such not a big deal these days, but like that was really hard.
Yeah.
You know?
Seeing that thing raise up, pretty cool moment.
Yeah, or did you get the chainsaw early and you could and it lowered down?
No.
Oh yeah, there's a place you can get a chainsaw. Secret. You can. It's not critical path for sure. I don't know if it's a secret to actually get it. It might be. Yeah, it probably is.
Was it where there was 2 buttons that on these 2 platforms and you had to push both of them?
No, that's not it. No, that was you could get like an armor for that, like a blue armor. Okay. No, that was much earlier than that. Actually, it was. There's a room where you can actually see into the room and kill the enemies in it. There's like a little ante room, and you can see in there, and you can see a pillar. I don't think you can see the chainsaw. It's like, well, how do I get into that room? If you go into that room, there's a switch. You hit the switch, and the chainsaw lowers, and it's like in a little pool of toxic, the green sludge, and then the green sludge also disappears. So it's like really dynamic. It's like, oh, this thing lowers down, and there's this chainsaw on it.
That's crazy.
So you didn't get the chainsaw at all then?
No.
That's the only place I think you can get it.
Yeah.
Oh man, wow.
Well, like almost every level seems like has an early power weapon you can get earlier than you should.
Yeah, you can get the shotgun in the first level.
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah. I did find that one, but
and
most of
the plasma gun in the second. No, I'm just messing with you.
There's no plasma gun.
Yeah, the PFG level 3. Come on, you didn't get that.
Yeah, that's funny that you can play the whole chapter and not get the chainsaw.
Yeah,
which is such a fundamental.
Oh, it's huge
thing.
for the pinkies. I was always switching to it just because it's fun to cut the pinkies in half.
They show in the demo, in the what you call it, not the demo reel,
the track mode.
The track mode, they show you punching a lot, which I was like, I'm not going to be punching things. But you do have brass knuckles.
In Doom 2, they do that.
Is that the thing?
There's places where it's like there's no way you're going to be able to kill everything with the ammo that you, even if you had everything full, you can't kill everything. It's like there's invincibility orbs and things like that, or the quad damage or double damage.
So you punch.
And you literally have to go and punch things with the brass knuckles. Yeah. And that's much later. Anyway, kind of off the topic. Yeah, I don't remember anything like that. No,
it's astounding.
Yeah.
And I think he's right that it holds up too.
Yeah.
I'm playing on handheld mode, but I probably should check it out on the big screen. That'd be fun to see.
Does it use an accelerometer so you got to spin in your chair?
Oh yeah.
Turn around? No,
it doesn't.
Thought that would be.
I don't know if it. Well, there's some. You can turn on HD rumble or not. Oh. So there is some stuff going on there, but it's very minimal.
Yeah.
So
HD rumble.
The port, they spent some time on it.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah.
No, it's good that they did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. You get the second one, or your second one, and then I have a final one.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Subject: Pokemon did what? When? From, you guessed it, Gothic Chocobo.
It's either him or Q. So
Tim.
Yeah. Or Ben.
Yep. One of those.
Pokemaniacs.
Yeah. Tim, you called me out, and here I am. Remember? You made this happen. Okay, I did. It's my fault. Brett said that it would be interesting if Pokemon had a system whereby defeating a certain type of Pokemon, you would get better at fighting that type of Pokemon. Well, Pokemon actually has a system like this in place right from the very first game. The first 2 generations had a system called Stat Experience, Stat XP, that added the base stats of the Pokemon you had just defeated to your Pokemon stats up to a maximum of 65,535 points in a single stat. Okay.
That's to the 16th minus 1.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I figured there was a good math reason. You could also increase the stat XP points for the first 25,600 points by giving the Pokemon vitamins. The formula for calculating the stat boost is as follows. Change in stat equals floor, bracket min, bracket ceiling, brackets, oh boy. We'll put this in the show notes.
We'll put the formula in the show
notes.
There's a
255 in here and a 400 in asterisks.
255 is 8-bit.
Yeah, got it. From the 3rd generation of Pokemon games, this system was changed to effort values, or EV for short, not to be confused with Eevee, the Pokemon. They're very funny, Gothic. In which each Pokemon defeated gave 1, 2, or 3 points toward the stats EV, up to a total of 255 for the single stat and 510 maximum for a Pokemon. The EVs, it's so funny that they call it that, EVs gained relates to usually the highest stat of the Pokemon defeated. So Pikachu, with its highest base stat being speed, will give you a +2 EV in your speed stat. And Raichu, I'm not even sure how to say that, forget which one that is, will give you a +3 EV to your speed stat, and sturdy Pokemon such as the Geodude, Graveler, and Golem evolution line will give you a +1, 2, or 3 to your defense stat, respectively. When a Pokemon is first caught, its stat XP or EVs are 0, and the more battles it wins, the more it changes, which is why a wild Pokemon or a Pokemon only leveled up using rare candies is the same level is weaker than a Pokemon that has leveled up by its trainer. Up until the 6th generation of Pokemon games, these stat XPs and EVs are hidden to the player, as Shigeru Omori has stated that he prefers to think of Pokemon as real living creatures. Tim also said, learn something new every day, and today is the day that you learned the crazy world of EV training in Pokemon. Gothic Chocobo. Wow.
Yeah.
So wait a second. So I'm reading this last sentence. Up until the 6th generation, this was hidden to the player?
Yes. Well, we didn't know about it.
Right.
That's what I was saying.
It's
like,
not
it would be kind of,
but it
it's
was
totally not exposed to you.
But it was happening.
So I guess there's like this. So yeah, that's an interest just in and of itself. That's an interesting question of like exposing anything to player or not. Like you look at SimCity, like none of those things are exposed to the player in terms of like, oh, you do this thing with mass transit versus roads. There are formulae that make that a better decision to make more mass transit. It's not shown to the player. It's supposed to make a sort of procedural argument that that's the way to go by all the other things that happen. Like, oh, I built more roads and I'm just dealing with more traffic. Maybe I should try some mass transit, right? I mean, it's like...
Yeah.
But here it's totally lost because there's so much going on.
I mean, he says that it exists, and technically through the description that the Pokemon crazy people like him, like Gothic, have found...
Send email to...
You can send them directly. All right, I retract. The fans...
Yes, right.
The Uber fans,
that's what we call them.
Though this is now the formula is revealed and found and discovered, and I guess probably because they reveal it later versions, they go back and...
You can also decompile the code.
Okay, sure. However they found it. I'm just saying, however they originally got it. I don't know if I would personally officially say that it exists in the game as a system if the player isn't exposed to using the system. Do you know what I mean? Like when we brought this up, we were referring to it in terms of Bloodstain, which is an overt system where you say, I'm going to go grind to get a thing so I can do a thing.
Right.
And here's, if you know about it, you could exploit it. But for people who don't know that it exists... I guess you'd have to really glean a lot of stat tracking to figure that out.
I would say basically that the player might feel differently about the ones they've trained in battles or whatever versus ones that they
I would have if I'd known more explicitly to it.
So I think you already feel that just because you're investing the time to do it that way.
Maybe.
Like regardless of whether there's systemic benefits underneath.
So my next question, Gothic.
Here we go.
Is despite you describing this and sharing that it existed all along, when did you / the Uber fan know about it? And was it, even in Blue and Red, did you play that game so much and know so much about it that you knew this was happening and then thus
versus reading about it in a player guide or whatever?
Right. Oh yeah, if it was in the
Nintendo Power, or
if it was in there, that's a whole nother.
That's a different thing.
I would consider that different. But if it really wasn't revealed as a, anyway, by the 6th generation they would have figured it out anyway. But I'm really more talking about the first game. Like in the first game, even though it existed in the background, it's like saying, because a lot of stuff exists. To your point of SimCity, a lot of stuff exists in the background, but I I don't always consider that a player-facing system in that
But
case.
I would say it's still part of the argument the game's making to you. It might be too subtle to pick up in something like that. Like, it's hard to know.
It's a fair debate on when do you cross that line to be like a thing that is supposed to be utilized by the player.
It's something that in the game I'm working on we talk about. Like, we're trying to expose systems to the player, but not in sort of formulaic ways because of what we're trying to achieve with that game.
It's a great example.
And it's like...
that we can't talk about.
Exactly, yeah, that I can't go into any detail about, but ask again in like a year or whatever. But it's like a thing to think about. It's like, well, if the player can't reason about it, like what are their hooks to reason about it? For us, we're trying to find hooks that are not math.
Player intent is what I'm getting at. Right.
If you we're trying to find ways to give the player intent that are not math.
Math,
yeah.
Exactly. So if you and that doesn't seem to be overtly the case in Pokemon's case right now. Unless Gothic sends back and says, oh, within the first couple years, people playing Blue and Red did figure this out, and everyone knew, and the kids all were just like
but how much would you have to play to get that?
I don't know.
I can't even imagine. I'd have to look at
his next email is going to be even longer.
Yeah, his next email is like, there's just 6 other equations.
I do have a modern example for myself, though.
Yeah, okay.
And that's WoW. So the thing about WoW, when it comes to builds for classes, is when a new patch comes out and they've rebalanced your specs and all that.
Some say rebalanced. I prefer nerfed.
Okay, nerfed, fine. Half empty, half full. The thing is you go to Icy Veins or some specific site to actually figure out what the math is doing and what the best builds are, because you're not going to do it yourself because the game doesn't expose it to you.
You do.
I do, but I'm saying almost everyone goes out there to find.
I would say is, a person who played WoW, I played a druid, bull man. Yeah. What are they called? Taurens.
Yeah.
I played a Tauren druid.
Yeah.
And I always just was the cat. That was my thing that I changed into.
Yeah.
Because aesthetics are important.
Okay.
And I didn't really care about all the numbers.
No, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Right.
I thought you were going the other direction. But yes, you don't
I
have
didn't care.
No, you don't have to care, but I'm saying if you want to...
if you want to actually know.
If you want to be efficient, if you want to play your class efficiently in a raid situation where you need to be kind of pulling your weight, you're not going to do the math yourself. It's in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so it's there's someone's always going to do that for you.
Yeah.
And there are systems like this EV stuff in WoW that are just not exposed in the game. Yeah. Because most people, your point, most people don't care and don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be somebody that does the math.
There's people like you and I who play in D&D. We played 3rd edition. And then there's people like Rich Davis. I figured out that the Rich went and was like, I'm playing Rich now, but it's like, turns out if you take improved initiative and feat or whatever, like he worked out like, you get double damage, the X percent of the time.
Min-max. That's what the term
totally min-max. Yeah. But it was all exposed. Yeah. Right? Yeah. This would be more like, but I read the DM's mind of when he was getting out. Right? And that's the difference. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a whole deep, it's good. Unexpected topic.
Yeah.
But thanks, Chocobo.
Yeah. And, all future equations sent to you. The man who can't even read them. We have one here from Speak Clean. Remember he was on the when we played SNES Classic. He says, hello. Hey, Brett and Tim. A random survey for you. Here is a list of a few famous duos.
Okay.
Or you're going to just have to answer.
Okay.
Without thinking. You have to just... And then I'll argue when you're right.
All right, okay.
For each one, tell us which is Tim and which is Brett.
Oh, no.
Holmes and Watson.
I'm Watson.
I would not argue with that.
Yeah, okay.
Bert and Ernie.
I'm Bert.
So far, you're 2 for 2.
Okay.
Mario and Luigi.
Probably Luigi.
Wow. 3 for 3.
Yeah.
Kirk and Spock.
Kirk?
I'm Kirk.
Yeah, okay. I see that. No, I am. My wife calls me a robot.
Yeah, I know.
And you're,
because of the green skin ladies.
No.
Because I literally have a picture of me sitting in Kirk's chair making his pose.
Yeah.
That's why I'm
You're
Kirk.
Definitely Kirk. I totally got that wrong.
And here's...
I was just thinking of the more logical, last one.
Beauty and the Beast. I don't like where that goes. I'm not happy with that.
No, we can't answer that.
I'm not going to answer that
because
one.
of the repercussions of what that really means.
Neither of us win, no matter
I'm
how we
the
answer
rose.
that question. I'm the glass.
No, you're Gaston.
Oh,
Come on.
yeah.
You're totally the Gaston.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Good one.
Good one.
Nice,
anyway,
Squeaky.
he says thanks
Love
for the
it.
cast as always.
Love
Thank you,
it. Love
Speak
it.
Clean / Derek.
I got almost all of them right. Of
You got all of them right.
Of course I'm
Except for
Spock.
Kirk and Spock.
Of course I'm Spock.
You are
'cause
very
my,
Spock-like.
My wife, it's like, I am the logical,
You're the
robotic...
pointy, green-blooded alien. Pointy-eared, green-blooded alien. Whether you're Yoda or Spock.
Monotone, like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
With just a sliver of humanity.
Yes.
That's it, though.
Just a tiny little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
Love it. Good.
Anyway,
Good.
I thought that was pretty fun.
That was awesome. That
Yeah,
was awesome.
I like that a lot.
Good way to end.
Very good way to end. Anyway, so here we are. We're at the end. We're going to... I don't know how we're going to do this week because we have to record before I leave. Because you're also going away. So that'll be fun.
Well, no, but I'll be back.
I'll be driving.
Well, but we could do Monday or Tuesday. We're doing...
When I'm in North Dakota and...
Right.
Because I'm driving.
Right.
Anyway.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Good luck.
Luckily, the episodes are...
Yeah,
chapters are short
actual
enough.
play
We
time
might
will be short.
be able
but
to do that.
But yeah, we're going to play another episode. Like we already said that we're going to play an episode each time, basically. And there's tons of topics. I mean, one of the things about this game is basically there's not like everything's in the first episode. So we're really just we have a ton of topics already that we didn't even touch
We've
on.
left some. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be dealing with all of those. But if you'd like to play along, you can definitely do that and play episode 2. What's On the Shores of something?
I forget.
I forget the name of the episode, but whatever. The second one. And we'll keep playing that, and we'll be on to that next week. Thanks for sending your emails to devgameclub@gmail.com. And, of course, I've been playing the game at twitch.tv/BrettDuville, where Tim has occasionally been dropping in to say hello, and where we played some SNES Classic last week, though I don't think we're going to do that again.
We even played Jack.
We haven't played Jack.
Jackbox.
Oh, we did. We played Jackbox. That was fun. Yeah.
It was just the three of us.
It was 3 of us, but yeah.
That was Q, right?
You never know. It was cute.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for joining in on all of that. You can find the podcast on Twitter at @DevGameClub, where you can also find my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end.
And, of course, I occasionally am on Twitter at Brett Duville, but really almost never anymore.
For the best.
It's for the best for everyone, especially me. Anyway, thanks for playing games this week, and good night.
Good night. That was my best Bert I could do.